My dear viewers, hello and welcome to a new episode of our program Newsroom Live. Today's edition will tackle a variety of local, regional and also international news with a focus, of course, on the continuous Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip. My name is Aman Mukhtar. A short break and I'm going to be back with you. Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received visiting Iraqi head of the Iraqi head of the Al-Maliki Al-Hikma National Movement, Amar al-Hakim, and the accompanying delegation in Cairo on Tuesday. The Intelligence Chief Major General Abbas Kamel attended the meeting. Presidential spokesman Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said that during the meeting, Sisi expressed support for all efforts to cement security, stability and development in Iraq. For his part, al-Hakim praised historical ties with Egypt, saying it plays a pivotal role in preserving and the security and stability of the Arab region. The spokesman said that the meeting discussed regional developments and the war on Gaza. He said Egyptian efforts to reach a ceasefire and allow humanitarian aid into the enclave also topped the agenda of the talks. He said both sides highlighted the need for the international community to shoulder the responsibility to protect civilians and reach a ceasefire, stressing the importance of reaching a comprehensive and fair settlement to the Palestinian issue. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Monday received a phone call from Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, where they discussed the current military escalation in the Gaza Strip. Presidential spokesman Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said that the phone call tackled the distinguished bilateral relations between Egypt and Belgium, as well as relations between Egypt and the EU, which is now under the rotating presidency of Belgium. The phone call also tackled the situation in Gaza, where President al-Sisi reviewed the efforts exerted by Egypt in order to reach a ceasefire, achieving prisoner swap and allowing humanitarian aid into the Palestinian Strip. During the phone call, the head of state hailed Belgium's stance, supporting truce and rejecting escalation in Gaza. For his part, the Belgian Prime Minister asserted his country's consensus with Egypt's vision and its efforts that aim at reactivating the two-state solution. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry asserted that Egypt rejects the Israeli military operation in Gaza Strip, including the planned operation in Palestinian Rafah city, as well as any plots and measures aimed at evacuating the Palestinians outside the Gaza Strip. The remarks were made as Shoukry met on Monday with a U.S. delegation led by Adam Smith, Democrats leader at the Congress's Military Services Committee, who is visiting Egypt as part of a regional tour. Shoukry also said Egypt sees no other alternative for an immediate ceasefire and the launch of clear steps towards a serious and real peace process that lead to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with a short and definite timetable. The foreign minister also asserted the important role of the UNRWA, notably during the current crises in receiving and distributing humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry heads to Brazil's Rio de Janeiro to participate in the G20 meeting due on Wednesday. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ambassador Ahmed Abu Zaid said Shoukry's participation comes upon an invitation by Brazil. Shoukry is to discuss the role of the G20 in settling international crises. He is also to discuss reforms to international governance. He is also to hold a number of bilateral meetings with counterparts from member states and countries invited to the meetings. Egypt expressed regret on Tuesday over the UN Security Council's failure to adopt a ceasefire resolution in Gaza. The Foreign Ministry said in a statement that blocking a ceasefire resolution in a military conflict that resulted in the death of more than 29,000 civilians, most of them women and children, is an unprecedented, disgraceful failure in the history of the Security Council's dealings with military conflicts. Details in the following report.
The United States on Tuesday again vetoed a draft United Nations Security Council resolution on the Israeli aggression in Gaza, blocking a demand for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. 13 Council members voted in favor of the Algerian drafted text, whilst Britain abstained. It was the third such U.S. veto since the start of the current fighting on October the 7th. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, signaled on Saturday that the U.S. would veto the draft resolution over concerns it would jeopardize talks between the U.S., Egypt, Israel and Qatar that seek to broker a pause in the war and the release of hostages held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The U.S. has since proposed a rival draft resolution calling for a temporary ceasefire in the Israeli aggression and opposing a major ground offensive by its ally Israel in Rafah. Until now, Washington has been averse to the word ceasefire in any UN action on the Israeli aggression. But the U.S. text echoes language that President Joe Biden said he used last week in conversations with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. U.S. draft resolution would see the Security Council underscore its support for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza as soon as practicable based on the formula of all hostages being released, and calls for lifting all barriers to the provision of humanitarian assistance at scale. Algerian drafted resolution vetoed by the U.S. did not link a ceasefire to the release of hostages. It separately demanded an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages.
Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Midhat Al-Maliki, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening to you.
Well, Your Excellency, how did you follow today Egypt's the Foreign Ministry statement saying that blocking a ceasefire resolution in a military conflict that resulted in the death of more than 29,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children, I described it as an unprecedented failure in the history of the Security Council?
Well, it's not just about the Security Council. Actually, it's a sad day for humanity and for the rule of law and the international law. I mean, what we've seen today was totally unexpected, coming after so many statements from the United States about the necessity to start a peace dialogue between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and what they expressed about their readiness to help to create a Palestinian state. Yes. That's why I always said, and I repeat it again, that we only believe in the doings of the United States, such as today. This represents the real position of the United States, but not what they say, because what they say is just for public consumption, and it's not really worth to be said, because at the end of the day, we have this position right now that shows to which extent that the United States do not care about the 29,000 lives and even more about casualties. We are talking about 100,000 between dead and injured Palestinians. This did not provoke in the United States any remorse for them, but the risk of losing the ties that is connecting it to Israel is far more important than those lives that were lost during this war.
Yes, yes. Also, Your Excellency, Ambassador Maliki, this is not the first time the U.S. Vetoed the...
This is the third time since the beginning of the war. Not
This
to
is the
mention
third time, yes. This is the third
many
time.
times before this war.
Yes, this is the third time. The first time was against a proposal by Russia, and the second one, and also this is the third time. So how did you see the stance of the U.S. being this the third time it uses its veto?
It shows that without any shred of a doubt that the United States is ready to lose all its allies and it's ready to lose its international respect even and isolate itself more and more just to stand with Israel. And unfortunately, this stand actually is not just against the Palestinian or the rest of the countries that are represented in the Security Council, but it's also against the Israeli interest itself. And unfortunately, we've been seeing this for decades. This is not a new position of the United States. It is so flagrant this time that it provokes all the international community worldwide, not just in the Arab area or in the Middle East. Actually, nobody was expecting that the United States would use the veto right today to stop this motion. And Egypt condemned this in perfect wording when it says that this shows a shameful precedent in the history of the Security Council, dealing with armed conflicts and wars throughout history. So, I mean, it just shows the double standard. I mean, when we are talking about other regional wars, the United States is taking exactly the opposite, which is stand with the oppressed or the occupied or the aggressed people. But contrary to all the rightness in this, it shows to stand with the oppressor, it shows to stand with the colonialists, it shows to oppress with the people who are inflicting the genocide on another people, which shows to which extent there is a double standard in the world of today, especially from the United States.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information. Your Excellency Ambassador Midhat El-Maliki, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break and I want to be back with you. Well, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad Al-Maliki told the UN's top court his people were suffering and are under apartheid of the Israelis, urging judges to order an immediate and unconditional end to the occupation. The International Court of Justice is holding hearings all week on the legal implications of Israel's occupation since the year 1967, with an unprecedented 52 countries, including the United States and Russia, expected to give evidence. Details in the following report.
Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad Al-Maliki told the UN's top court his people were suffering colonialism and apartheid under the Israelis, urging judges to order an immediate and unconditional end to the occupation. The ICJ is holding hearings all week on the legal implications of Israel's occupation since 1967, with an unprecedented 52 countries, including the United States and Russia, expected to give evidence. Speaking in the Peace Palace in The Hague, where the ICJ sits, the minister urged judges to declare the occupation illegal and order it to stop immediately, totally and unconditionally. Summing up, Palestinian UN envoy Riyad Mansour struggled to hold back his tears as he called for a future where Palestinian children are treated as children, not as a demographic threat. In December 2022, the UN General Assembly asked ICJ for a non-binding advisory opinion on the legal consequences arising from the policies and practices of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. While any ICJ opinion would be non-binding, it comes amid mounting international legal pressure on Israel over the war in Gaza since October 7, 2023. The hearings are separate from a high-profile case brought by South Africa alleging that Israel is committing genocidal acts during the current Gaza offensive. Al-Maliki charged, however, that the genocide underway in Gaza is a result of decades of impunity and inaction. In January, the ICJ ruled in that the case that Israel must do everything in its power to prevent genocide and allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, stopping short of ordering a ceasefire. On Friday, it rejected South Africa's bid to impose additional measures on Israel, but reiterated the need to carry out the ruling in full.
All European Union countries except Hungary warned Israel against launching an offensive in Rafah that they said would deepen the catastrophe of some 1.5 million refugees into the city on the southern edge of Gaza. Ireland's Foreign Minister Michael Morton said before a meeting of foreign ministers from the 27 European Union member states in Brussels, said an attack on Rafah would be absolutely catastrophic and it would be unconditional. After the talks ended, all but one of them called in a joint statement for an immediate humanitarian pause that would lead to a lasting ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages and the provision of humanitarian assistance. The statement was issued in the name of foreign ministers of 26 member states of the European Union and diplomats, and said Hungary, a close ally of the Israeli government, was the sole country that did not sign up. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock also called on Israel to respect humanitarian law. As the Gaza war rages and the Muslim holy month of Ramadan nears corner has grown over potential tensions at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque compound past flashpoint for violence. The site is the occupied old city of Jerusalem, is Islam's third holiest and most sacred, known to Jews as Temple Mount. Israel is yet to officially decide on restrictions for Muslim worshippers during Ramadan, expected to start around the 11th of March, but proposals to limit numbers have already sparked angry backlash. Last week, Israel's hard-right National Security Minister argued that Palestinian residents of the occupied West Bank should not be allowed entry to Jerusalem to pray during Ramadan. Usually, Muslims in their tens and hundreds and even hundreds of thousands pray and break their fast at the compound seized by Israel in 1967 and later annexed alongside the rest of East Jerusalem. The EU formally launched a naval mission to protect Red Sea shipping from Yemen's Houthi rebels as attacks by the group forced the crew of one vessel to abandon ship and damaged another. The Houthis, who control much of war-torn Yemen, have been harassing the vital shipping lane since November in a campaign they say is in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza during the Israel-Hamas war. The European Union aims to have the mission called Greek for Shield up and running in a few weeks with at least 4 vessels. The United States is already spearheading its own naval coalition in the area and has conducted retaliatory strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, as has Britain. The dozens of Houthi attacks have roiled shipping in the Red Sea, forcing some companies to take alternative routes, including a 2-week detour around the tip of southern Africa. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says delays in weapons deliveries from Western allies to Ukraine are opening a door for Russian battlefield advances, making the fight every difficult along parts of the front line where the Kremlin's forces captured a strategic city last weekend ahead of the war's two-year anniversary. Zelensky and other officials have often expressed frustration at the slowness of promised aid deliveries, especially since signs of war fatigue have emerged. European countries are struggling to find enough stocks to send to Kiev, and U.S. help worth $60 billion with stalled over political differences that appears to be playing into the hands of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Zelensky, in his daily video addresses late Monday, said Russia has built up troops at some points along the 1,500-kilometer front line, apparently aiming to pounce on any defensive weakness. Well, now with the economy news, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi witnessed on Monday the inauguration of the 7th edition of Egypt's, which is held under the slogan Energy in Action, Supply Security Energy, Convergent Emissions Reduction. During the inauguration, President al-Sisi said implementing renewable energy pledges in Africa is difficult due to the lack of funding, calling on international financing institutions and rich countries to provide low-cost funding to renewable energy projects. Details in the following report.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi underscored the financing difficulties faced by African countries, including Egypt, in meeting climate and energy transition commitments. President al-Sisi was speaking at the inauguration of the Egypt Energy Show on Monday, themed Driving Energy Transition, Security and Decarbonization. The event has attracted officials, local and global energy sector leaders, CEOs, and tens of thousands of attendees and delegates from the energy sector. President al-Sisi emphasized that while advanced countries in Europe and the U.S. can fulfill their commitments due to their organizational and economic capacities, Egypt and Africa are struggling to implement theirs. He stressed that fulfilling such commitments becomes extremely challenging in low-income countries. President al-Sisi also addressed the challenges posed by the poor conditions of Egypt's infrastructure and roads. President al-Sisi questioned whether international financial institutions witnessing Egypt's efforts and accomplishments have shown readiness to provide low-cost financing to support the implementation of such commitments and plans. He stressed that this question applies to Egypt and Africa as a whole. The president referred to the $100 billion pledge advanced countries made to help developing economies meet climate action goals. He added that these commitments have not been fully honored by the pledging states. The head of state noted that a 40 to 50% drop in Suez Canal revenues, which used to contribute about $10 billion annually to Egypt amid the ongoing regional developments.
Top executive of the United Arab Emirates state-owned Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC, on Monday said the company's strategy was anchored around gas output and that Egypt has been identified as a big market with a lot of potential. Musabih Al-Kabi, ADNOC's executive director for low-carbon solutions and international growth, made his remarks at a conference in Egypt's energy Shell Egypt's in Cairo at NOC last week said it would form a joint venture with global oil major producers in Egypt, focusing initially on natural gas projects. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli held a meeting on Tuesday with the Minister of Planning and Deputy Minister of Finance to review the Economic and Social Development Plan for the next fiscal year. During the meeting, Madbouli asserted on the importance of boosting economic development and to vitalize the role of private sector for the coming period. Egypt's stock market indices collectively went up in the trading session on Tuesday after selective purchasing operations by local and foreign investment funds reached high rates, exceeding profit-making sales by local investors and Arab investment funds. The benchmark EGX 30 index rose 0.4% to close above 293,301 points, while the EGX 70 index for small and medium businesses gained 2.24% at closure, while the border EGX 100 index also increased by 1.7%. The world needs trillions of dollars to spur on the green transition and tackle global warming. The head of the last year's COP28 climate talks said Tuesday, warning that political momentum can evaporate without clear action. Details in the following report.
The world needs trillions of dollars to spur on the green transition and tackle global warming, the head of last year's COP28 climate talks said on Tuesday, warning that political momentum can evaporate without clear action. COP28 President Sultan Al-Jaber hailed progress made at UN negotiations last year in Dubai. The deal lacked important details, including on funding, putting this year's COP29 meeting in Azerbaijan. With imports accelerating as global heat records are smashed, experts say the funding agreed this year will also play an important role in encouraging governments to toughen up their decarbonization targets. Jaber said finance was the key enabler of positive change at the speed and scale needed. Countries are expected this year to hammer out a new target for the amount of annual support rich nations will provide to poorer ones. The failure of wealthy nations to meet their goal of $100 billion per year by 2020 has soared trust. Needs far outstrip the money available. The UN-backed climate finance expert group has estimated that emerging economies except China will need to spend around $2.4 trillion a year by the end of the decade.
Well, the incoming tourism rates to Egypt in 2023 achieved record numbers as the total number of tourists have reached 14,906,000 tourists. The mentioned number exceeded the 2010 record of 14,731,000 tourists. Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone Dr. Ahmed Nicola, member of the Chamber of Tourism Companies. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, dear.
Well, Dr. Nicola, how did you follow these good news of the increase of the influx and the flow of tourists to Egypt in the year 2023?
Well, 2023 was a remarkable year for us. This year came exactly after the pandemic, and most of the world population was anxious to travel, and we took our share from this movement. Egypt was one of the hot destinations around the tourist destination around the world. It was considered on the top 10 in several tourist magazines and sites, preferred to most travelers in the world. And we get our share, and we could get extra and more for the years to come.
Yes. So Dr. Nicola, also, how did you see the efforts exerted by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities in marketing for the tourism in Egypt? There are several initiatives that were launched by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. Also, a great care for the online pages by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, providing help for all tourists who would like to have some information about Egypt or how to come to Egypt with all the languages in the world. So how did you evaluate this?
It is, of course, it is very important. Just like most of the exotic travel destination of the world, you can always search it, and you're gonna find this country or that country having full informative sites about what this destination can offer, what this destination has to do with the travelers. So finally, we're gonna have this for us also. In Egypt, for the people to know more about the destination before they come, and it is quite remarkable to have it in several languages, so people doesn't have to go through translations and get the full info about the destination even before they travel, or even before they decide which destination to travel to. If we put the components of the sites in the right attractive way, we might even get more business out of this sites. And of course, when it comes to tourism, we were expecting this year even to be higher than 2023, but unfortunately for the crisis in the area, it slowed down a little.
Yes, but the year is still in its beginning.
We hope. Let's hope that things will cool down, and we gain the momentum of movement of tourism again for 2024. And let me tell you that my own expectation for 2025 is going to be really booming again. And we're going to be prepared for it. We have to be prepared for it when it comes to all our infrastructures, rooms, buses, cars, roads, everything that facilitate the travelers in Egypt. We need to get ready from now.
Yes, I thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Dr. Ahmad Nicola, member of Chamber of Tourism Companies. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break and I'm going to be back with you. Now with the sports news, as Al Ahly were held to a 0-0 draw with CR Belouizdad in the fourth round of the group stage of African Champions League in Algeria on Friday. The first leg also ended with a draw in Alexandria's Burj Al Arab Stadium. The Champions League holders Ahly opened the group stage campaign with a convincing convincing 3-0 victory over Medina of Ghana before securing a 1-1 draw against Tanzania's Young Africans in the second round. Al Ahly will head to Ghana to face Medina on February the 23rd. The Champions League holders Ahly are on top of the Group D with 5 points from 3 matches. Well, Liverpool's manager Jurgen Klopp said on Tuesday that forward Diogo Jota will be missing for months because of injury. The Portugal international hurt his right knee in the first half of Liverpool's 4-1 win at Brentford in the English Premier League on Saturday. The injury potentially threatens Jota's involvement in the European Championship in Germany starting in June. Liverpool's injury crisis has deepened with 9 senior players unavailable heading into a key period of the season that includes the English League Cup final against Chelsea on Sunday. Crystal Palace have named Australian Oliver Glancer as their new manager to replace Roy Hodgson. The 49-year-old has signed a deal to become the Eagles' boss until the end of 2025-2026 season. Palace appointed the former Wolfsburg and Eintracht Frankfurt manager after Hodgson stepped down with the club 16th in the league standings, 5 points above the relegation zone after 6 wins from 24 games. Glasner managed Eintracht Frankfurt for 2 seasons, leading the Bundesliga club to win the Europa League in 2022, and his side reached the German Cup final in 2023. Glancer's first game in charge will be at home to Burnley on Saturday. The perfect script played out for Hendrick Motorsports at the end of the 66th Daytona 500 on Monday. Race leader William Byron finished for lap shootout under caution in the President's Day Daytona 500 delayed a day because of rain, making him the winner of the Great American Race in Daytona Beach Flat. As the late afternoon start turned into night at the historic Daytona International Speedway, and with the white flag approaching, Ross Chastain made a move into the middle lane and wrecked with second place Austin Cedric. The grave Byron in the number 24 Chevrolet, his first Daytona 500 win and 11th of his career in the series. Byron's teammate Alex Bowman finished second as Hendrick Motorsports emerged with its 9 500 win, tying the organization for the first all-time with Perry Enterprises and a 1-2 finish. Well, that brings us to the end of our program, Newsroom Live. I hope you've enjoyed today's edition. My name is Amal Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.